All right, we will go on to Dr. Sean for finance.
This is probably my chance to have a shorter report than curriculum for the first time ever, and we had our busiest month of the year, so that's probably not going to happen. But we'll start at the top. As of the end of February, we're 67% of the way through our fiscal year, 50% of the way through our school year. We have 2 months worth of monthly financial data for review in our packets. You recall from the time our meeting fell last month, we didn't have February data yet. So January and February spending, nothing of noteworthy to call out. Spending in line with expected for this year and in line with last year as well. Ms. Davis gave us a bond construction update. So just a couple things to note there. Central Middle School is nearly done, and we'll touch on Central Middle a little bit more later. Ada Vista is progressing, changing phases to the next phase at spring break, so that's on schedule. Pine Ridge is on schedule. The administration building will start to move in a couple weeks here over spring break, and then the transition center move-in will take place over the summer, so that's right on our doorstep. And the Forest Hills Eastern new secure entrance that we approved a few months ago, that work will begin in May as well on the back of the building there. As it relates to the 2023 bond work, the first item on that agenda is Forest Hills Northern and Eastern Athletics, like we talked about before. That's moved on to the official design phase, hoping to bid some of those projects out starting in April. So that work is moving right along as well. Then on to the items for approval, and you can see we've got a pretty good list. We can start with the curriculum items that Mrs. Tryon described for the reading fluency headphones. Those are actually coming out of a state categorical, a grant, section 35A5, specifically designated for early literacy. So that's a cost of $46,595 for those. And the TCI Social Studies program is a cost not to exceed $79,380 out of our general fund. And then we have kind of groups of items. First is one that we will remember from last June for music equipment for this building, Fire Center, as well as a couple of high schools, Central and Northern High School. This came to us when we asked that we just learn a little bit more about the hierarchy of needs from the music department and how that fits into our other needs. Thank you, Mrs. Davis and the music department for obliging us in that. And they are returning with the same recommendations. So again, thank you. The Fine Arts Center will be outfitted with a kind of fleet of percussion instruments that will cause us to not need to roll up and transport each high school's equipment here, which takes the life away from that with dings and everything else, and takes time and dollars and all that to move. So that will be good to have their own set here. And Central High School and Northern High School will also receive new timpani. So this was bid out. There was 3 bidders who came back, and the recommendation is to go with the low bidder, Steve Weiss Music, for a cost not to exceed $73,297. And this falls under a capital projects expense, so out of the 2021 capital projects fund for those. Our next 2 items are technology related. The first is software, if you will, for our Microsoft desktop networking and licensing programs. This is year 2 of a 3-year agreement that we are in, but we pay annually. We reapprove annually. We've used this service since 2012. Serves us very well with the whole fleet of Microsoft products. Fits with our antivirus and endpoint protection that we've discussed before. So this is for the next year of that agreement at a cost of $52,032 out of the general fund. The next is more physical for our wired network infrastructure, which is described essentially as the backbone of all of the technology that we have across the district. These are the physical units in each building that work with connectivity, communication, and everything of that nature. The general recommendation, as we were told, is to review and replace largely. This will update these systems every 5 to 7 years. We're on year 8, so it is due. 5 bidders responded. 4 of them were invited to demo their solutions. The recommendation is for a group called Delta Network Services. This is who we use now. They're considered top in the industry. We've had very few problems and failures in the 8 years that we've had them. And they can do this job pretty efficiently in a couple weeks over the summer. They were not the low bidder after we teased out all of the bids and the actual items we needed. They were the second low bid by about $20,000. But for all those previous mentioned reasons, the recommendation is to go with them for a cost not to exceed $1,161,000. So So again, $20,000 difference is less than 2% variance between those bidders, and that's again out of 2021 capital projects. The next two items are outside, just our annual approvals for lawn maintenance and fertilizer weed control for our outside spaces. These are both extensions on agreements that we've had in place since 2021, which work in our favor because prices now, I think, for these equivalent services are probably quite a bit more than they were then. So we have the option to extend all of these for another year. The lawn maintenance extension would go to Van Boston Outdoors. That's spring and fall cleanup, weekly mowing, all of those things. Cost not to exceed $118,742 out of our general fund. And the fertilizer weed control is a separate portion being extended to True Green Incorporated. Similar agreement for a cost not to exceed $63,811, also out of our general fund. Our next two items are furniture related or interior related. The first is for new furniture. We have outfitted many of the buildings that we've had construction and renovation going on. This is a request to outfit some of the buildings that have not had construction, but to still give them some new life. So at our non-construction schools, 7 schools, Central Woodlands, Northern Trails, Eastern Middle, Northern Middle, Central High, Eastern High, Northern High, as well as the Transition Center. Each of those places, well, the Transition Center is 3 classrooms, and then between 9 and 15 classrooms at all of the other schools. Again, the same process by which teachers and building administrators chose and got to select out of the catalog the furniture of their choosing. Multiple purchasing co-ops again, 5 separate suppliers for all of these, and a total cost not to exceed $2,009,975, 2021 Capital Projects Fund. And the second is a request to install new flooring above the gym and the balcony area at Central Middle School to create a weightlifting space so that Central Middle can offer the class Fitness for Life and weight training. That's something that Eastern and Northern both offer. Central doesn't have a space for it at the moment, but they have demand for it, so this will allow that class to be offered at Central Middle as well. And this creates a weight room space essentially off the balcony in the gymnasium. So the request is for the appropriate flooring in that space as well as a couple stairwells that lead up there. Sourcewell Purchasing Co-op, this will actually come from Shaw Industries for a cost not to exceed $37,210, again out of 2021 capital projects. And the next couple are for construction related. First is asbestos abatement at Ada Vista as they work through the renovations there. RFP was issued, 2 vendors bid, and they're recommending the low bidder HV Green for Life. That cost not to exceed $49,603, again 2021 capital projects. The next is some work at Nat Forest to facilitate a new walk-in freezer and cooler. We used food service funds last July, I believe it was, to purchase these new walk-in fridge freezers, and upon installation or getting ready to install, it looks to be a bigger project than anticipated that actually requires a more formal construction process, so that's what this is. It involves opening a small wall, running some new electrical, modifying some roof drainage, and installing a frost pad. So all of the details and awardees are in the packet. There was 9 bids in 3 categories overall, and so this is to approve all of those contracts to those low bidders to perform the work for a cost all in of $162,766. Again, 2021 capital projects there. And final construction for this month is additional funds for the Central Middle renovation. As it's wrapping up, 2 things have been discovered. One, that there are some costs that were not anticipated that we've run into, or some things that need to be fixed that have not been, that weren't planned on. And then there was a little bit of thing that wasn't in the original scope that's being recommended as well. So the first are things like pipes, chilled water pipes that were corroded, so more extensive replacement work had to be done there. Some additional HVAC testing and balancing that had to be done that wasn't expected. And then the other piece is the entrance area when you walk right in was largely left untouched. So you kind of feed through this older space, darker space, described as sort of a tunnel of sorts, before you enter this new, very nice and wide open and lots of light space. So the desire is to update that initial space inside the vestibule as well to kind of fit with the rest of the work that's been done there. So all of that put together for an additional cost of $506,000, including all of the contingencies there. Again, fitting out of our 2021 capital projects. Then the final item, before our budget, well, I should say there's two more, so I will not say that yet. The last large item, I should say, is to adopt a resolution to authorize the district to refund and issue bonds for a total amount not to exceed $20,500,000. And this would come out of the remaining 2014 bond series being refunded, as well as some issuing of a small new series, our first series of the 2023 bond from last fall. If you recall, in November, we authorized to look at doing this, the 2014, kind of refunding those and retiring them early through a private placement. This was kind of a small, so we authorized them to go explore that. That was explored, and the conditions for doing that private placement were not as favorable as projected. The banks, the rates don't seem to be in line with the bond market as a whole, as was expected. So they've come back to say, can we just go through the traditional bond market process, which is going to be more efficient and more cost effective for us. So that would include refunding the 2026 through 2029 portions of the 2014 bond, refunded up to $13 million, and then issuing up to $7.5 million out of a new small series of the 2023 bond. So Huntington Bank will be the underwriter for this, but with an issue cost of about $135,000. The plan is still that we would end up saving, especially on that 2014 bond, about $900,000 by performing this maneuver and refunding those bonds now. So again, this is just another authorization to explore, and if there are terms and things set in place, those will come back to us again to ratify and to see what those terms officially look like. And the final item is refunded property taxes for the amount of $24,117.95 to Kent County. We also have a budget amendment that we've been anticipating. That's a little bit lengthy. Are there any questions on the other items so far that we've talked about? Excellent.